As a professional musical theater performer and songwriter, I find nothing more fascinating than looking at cut content. So today we are going to be looking at not one, but two different demos of Rapunzel's I Want song from Tangled. It can be very rare for us to see multiple demos or drafts because of how strict companies are with their IP, but I really think that that's a shame. Because whether you're a musician, a writer, or just a storyteller of any kind, seeing an earlier version of a song that we all know and love can teach us how to become like the masters that wrote it. By looking at the similarities and the differences, we can see what mistakes they made during development or what they polished into perfection. And both demos have one critical flaw that could have tanked the entire movie. If you think I'm being overdramatic, we've seen it with Wish. It can happen. Bad music can destroy an entire movie. But with the final version, they were able to fix it by doing something incredibly simple. Good day, everybody. It is Calxiyn here, ready to nerd out on Calxiyn Cares Too Much about something I'm going to make you care about because I think that this is really, really cool. Let us get into it. Did you guys know that Tangled was in development hell years before we got the version that we got now? And that's important context when we talk about the songs because the songs are from two different iterations or treatments of the script. And there's not a lot known about these versions, but we at least have four. So number one, we have Rapunzel, and this original pitch was going to be darker and more similar to the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Some people that worked on it have compared it to Hunchback, and so that gives us a good idea. Then we have the Shrek version, and no, I'm not kidding. After the success of Shrek, Michael Eisner wanted Disney to have its own movie musical to respond to Shrek that mocked traditional fairy tale tropes. Luckily, Rapunzel did not become this, but it was in production for a while and songs were written for it. After that idea rightfully gets canned, we go back to Rapunzel 2.0, and eventually we get back to Tangled. Now, as I mentioned, the Shrek Rapunzel version did have songs, but none of them made it to the internet, so going forward, what we are comparing is the amazing Chris Curtis's version of the I Want song, which I believe is from the original version of Rapunzel, pitch number one before they tried to make it into Shrek, and we are comparing that to another draft from Glenn Slater and Alan Menken, who obviously worked on the finished movie and were brought in to fix this shit after they tried to make it into Shrek. And these are There Girls in the World Like Me and What More Could I Ever Need, respectively. Before a character even begins to sing, the instrumental is what is going to convey their personality, such as how part of your world sounds underwater, how the notes float at the beginning and they get more intense as Ariel gets more emotional about what she desires. It not only conveys that she's a mermaid, but also her curiosity and her passion. That is the soundscape of part of your world. So as we listen to Curtis's version here, there's a waltz-like quality with gentle elements that are reminiscent to me of a lullaby. On the demo, someone is playing the piano, so we can't be sure how this would be arranged in terms of strings and brass and a full orchestra, but with what we have access to, it sounds very refined and princess-like. You can hear places in the instrumental where I would interpret Curtis's intention as to have drums and royal trumpets. There's also a quirkiness in how the notes rise and fall as well. Sometimes they are effortless, like someone is effortlessly playing the piano, and sometimes they're a bit clumsy, but not in a bad way. It just sounds like that Rapunzel is improvising, that she herself is playing. So you have this sense that there is the status quo, her life as it is, but as she starts to explore the life that she wants, the life that she could have, it starts to get more like her. It starts to break from the mold. If I had to compare this to anything, I would say that it reminds me of Once Upon a December, or In My Dreams from Anastasia, or Home from the Broadway version of Beauty and the Beast. Even though it may remind you of other princesses, it still sounds unique to Rapunzel in comparison to Tiana, Belle, or Ariel. In contrast, Alan Menken's prototype version has the guitar that we associate with Tangled now, and this makes it feel more folk-like and also a tad bit more pop music-y, and this isn't surprising surprising because Alan Menken was inspired by Joni Mitchell, so there's a dash of pop music in there, but it still sounds like musical theater. It feels like a girl playing the guitar alone in her bedroom, which I think is what they were trying to go for, and it also reminds me of shows like Hadestown, let's say, where a character plays an instrument, Orpheus and his lyre, but in this case it's Rapunzel and her guitar. It makes it sound very authentic. As we compare the two, we have to remember that there is no right or wrong answer. Both approaches work well for conveying the different Rapunzel personalities that they were going for. Curtis's has imagination and yearning, with the sense that Rapunzel is longing for something that she may not even remember, but she knows, she feels it in her heart. Whereas Menken's version showcases Rapunzel's optimistic and cheerful personality. Both of these approaches serve as a good foundation for the rest of the song, and also as a good base for adding in orchestral elements later. As a storyteller, the first thing that is required of you is to make a strong choice. Any choice at all. It doesn't matter what choice you make as much as how committed you are to making it. And this brings us to how Rapunzel is characterized through the lyrics. Before the emotional shift in the bridge in Curtis's song, Rapunzel is dreaming about what her life would be like if she were a blacksmith's daughter and then a fisherman's daughter, as you can see. The lyrics are full of beautiful imagery, beckoning the audience to have a sensory experience with Rapunzel, to be able to smell the sea or feel the vibrations of a horse galloping on the ground.
If I was the daughter of a blacksmith, would I know the smell of hay? And could I feel the sound of the hooves on the ground as the horses pass my way? If I was a fisherman's daughter, would my clothes smell of the sea? Would the salt in the air tangle my hair when the waves reach out to me?
As you can see, we have a very clear rhyme structure, and we also have a lot of clever alliteration or diction, such as teach, trade, leave, legacy. And these are things that pull us into the storytelling because it's extremely reliable quality-wise.
And if I was the daughter of a blacksmith, would he teach his trade to me? I would watch and I'd learn till it came my turn to leave his legacy. And if I was a fisherman's daughter, would his boat display my name? Rapunzel, he'd shout as we journeyed out, the sea is ours to claim.
We've talked about this in other videos, but a song should be both surprising and inevitable. And the way that we handle that is by lulling the audience into security, by giving them things that they may be able to predict, like sound and ground. That's something where if you're sitting there listening, you're like, I know what's coming up next. She's gonna say ground, and then we get a little dopamine hit off of that. And so we want to lull the audience into this security so they are along for the ride with us, and then we start to put in some surprising elements when we think that they've gotten too used to it. Because if it's all the same, then it's boring. So as soon as they get used to something, we change it up, we make it interesting, and we do that by changing the rhyme scheme or changing what the character is going through emotionally. And we can also do that by changing things in the music as well. Getting back to the lyrics though, we always circle back to Rapunzel lamenting that she is not these things. The first time she says that she is just alone inside of the tower, and then the second time she says she has never traveled from the tower.
But I am not the daughter of a blacksmith, though I wish that I could be. I am just alone inside this tower, and I wonder, are there girls in the world like me? But I am not a fisherman's daughter, though I wish that I could be. I have never traveled from this tower, and I wonder, are there girls in the world like me?
And in both sections, she is wondering if there are girls in the world like her somewhere. And you can imagine how this would be a beautiful animated sequence, right? Like you can imagine Rapunzel is, say, hanging off of a crow's nest, right? Like those ships that have the giant mast and you see in the movies all the time. I think Prince Eric probably does this, right? They hang from a rope and they hang off the side and they look at the sea, right? And she's dressed like a pirate and she's jumping down to the deck to be with her father. But then, oh no, the deck is just the mattress of her bed. Her father disappears. years she's been in her room the entire time. And so we see the imagination, the vivid dreams that she builds, and then it crushes us when she jumps down to be with that person, that paternal figure that she imagines, and then they disappear. To me, it's very Once Upon a December-esque, and it's interesting that her fantasies always focus on bonding with a father figure. And so you have Mother Gothel, but all she's craving is a father's love. Despite the fact that this song didn't make it in the final version, having Rapunzel be so imaginative, especially in a medium like animation, is an extremely compelling choice accompanied by good structure and good lyricism. What's really interesting is that while Curtis's version has Rapunzel singing about the lives that she wants, Slater's version has Rapunzel singing about the life that she is in. So the first part of this here focuses on nature before transitioning more into Rapunzel saying that she has her reading and her writing and her painting.
Gotta get up, get dressed, gotta see what's doing. Gotta get set, then get a quick bite or two in. Got a good mood that nothing on earth could ruin. I feel fresh and complete, and the world's at my feet. I got the morning sun, I got the eastbound breeze. I've got a cloud's eye view of several nearby trees. I've got all this, that, those, and I've got tons of these. I mean, what more could I ever need?
There is some nice imagery here, but in my opinion, it feels a little shallow. Obviously, it's supposed to be a bit more conversational, but I feel like that they were trying to go with repetition similar to All My Life from Hunchback. All my life I've memorized their faces. All my life I've wondered how it'd feel to pass a day, right? But I've got or gotta doesn't really have that same intensity because there's a difference between all my life, like that's a very emotional, pointed statement. Like that's something that jabs you your entire lifetime. You've been thinking about this thing, but the repetition of I've got just seems lazy in comparison. And I understand that they wanted to do I've got this and this and this. But the problem is that Rapunzel is so happy that it doesn't actually go anywhere interesting. Like when Ariel lists all of the things that she has, the entire point is, but who cares, no big deal, I want more. But with this, it's that she has these things and she's happy about it, which is the weird part that doesn't really click. Because you would expect her to be like, I have all this stuff, I should be happy, but I'm not. There's also a lot of modernized language as well, and this isn't a good or bad thing. I'm just trying to, again, show the contrast between these two songs because Curtis's version has such just vivid and, again, very intentional language, whereas this having a zillion steps or even I'm talking huge supplies, like that's something that reminds me of Anna in Frozen saying, oh, this would be totally strange. It's supposed to be more modernized. It's supposed to be, again, quirky teenage girl speak.
Got the whole day, so hey, why not go exploring? Got so much stuff, enough that it's never boring. Got no idea how anyone squeezes more in. And with all that I've got, am I lucky or what? I've got the passing birds, I've got the butterflies, I've got all kinds of books, I'm talking huge supplies. Plus there's a zillion steps, so I've got exercise. Come on, what more could I ever need? I've got my painting, my writing, life's so exciting. What more could I ever need? I've got my garden, my kitchen, my music.
And I feel like some of the lyrics are at least a little bit dubious, like gotta see what's doing. I looked it up. Apparently what's doing does exist. It is something that people say, but I've never heard it before. So it's weird that they're trying to use, again, more modern language like, oh, I got huge supplies. Like I'm talking huge supplies, right? That's not very refined or princess-like, which again, it doesn't need to be, but it's interesting that they would use that and then gotta see what's doing. Like what's doing feels kind of either like a very old people phrase, like maybe something that old people would say, or just I'm trying to be hip with the kids. So again, I've never heard anyone say that before. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but obviously the lyrics were changed for the final version, so that's fine. We can see the mistakes that were made in this version and that they were changed for a good reason. But there are some funny lyrics in here that unfortunately did not make it. Like, I think I've got a cloud's eye view of several nearby trees is particularly funny because you expect her to say, oh, well, from here I can see the town down below and the forest and the ocean, but the punchline is, oh, it's just trees. I see several trees. It's like 4 trees, and that's a joke, and I think that that's pretty funny. Or eastbound breeze. The joke here is that she only feels the wind if it's coming in that direction because of where her window is, and I thought that that was pretty clever. Those are nice subversions, but there aren't enough of those subversions through the rest of it. You'll notice that in Slater's version, Rapunzel is a lot more complacent, and she also reassures herself a lot more. She's like, oh, well, I'm happy. What more could I ever want or need?
I've got the perfect home, the finest clothes to wear. I've got so much to do, there's hardly time to spare. If I've got nothing else, well, I can brush my hair. It's like, what more could I ever need?
But in Curtis's version, Rapunzel knows that she's been kidnapped by an evil witch, so like there's nothing to be happy about, right? And that's the difference between the treatments of the script. Rapunzel loves Mother Gothel, but in the other treatment of the script, as far as we can see, she's a lot more like Frollo. Let me know if you guys want to see me compare Mother Knows Best to the original Gothel song that Curtis wrote as well. I think that that would be fun. Back to Slater's version, though, you may notice that at least some of these things seem like things that could be weaponized by Gothel or are weaponized by Gothel later in the movie. Like, it's setting up for Rapunzel to be like, I have a mother that brings me everything I want. She makes my favorite soup when I ask her. And so then Gothel, when Rapunzel expresses that she wants to leave, will be like, it pains me to know that you're so unhappy when I brought everything that you could ever want. Any daughter would be glad to have all of this. I can't do anything right, according to you, because that's very much in Gothel's character. Even though you can see that the lyrics are kind of basic sometimes, lyrics can ultimately be changed, and that's what we see in the final version of this song. What's important at this stage is settling on the voice that a character will have, which this does well. However, I have been much too nice, so let us talk about the major weaknesses of both versions and what we can learn from them. So starting with Slater's version first, it's too descriptive and too vague, like too descriptive and too lacking somehow, which is very impressive that they were able to do both bad things somehow at the same time. You would think that those things are opposites, but here's what I mean. For example, Rapunzel goes into details like, I have the butterflies, I have the morning sun, but what does that mean? And that's what I mean by too descriptive. We're going down to very minute details, but at the same time, she doesn't actually say anything of substance about them. Think about Belle, for instance, right? There goes the baker with his tray, like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell. Like, what's important here? Is it the baker? Right? Rapunzel's lyrics to me are like Belle saying, there goes the baker. Like, that's it, right? And nothing else. What's important about Belle's lyrics is that she has a fact and then gives an opinion. But I have no opinion from Rapunzel about how the sun makes her feel or how the butterflies and the birds make her feel. We don't know. She doesn't say, I have the birds to harmonize with. At least that would be that the birds sing along with her. I'm like, okay, I get it. I see more into her personality through a line like that. This is just, I have birds. Okay! Animation is a visual medium, so something important to remember is that we can see all the things Rapunzel is talking about, right? So we need context on why it makes her happy or makes her feel less alone. Even when she mentions things like books, like what do the books do? It would be better to say, I can go on more adventures than one person could go in an entire lifetime with all these books. Who needs the outside? I have something that is better. For whatever you are writing, do not not simply describe things. Make sure to have your character interjecting at least a little bit of their opinion so they can resonate with us. So if we have an opinion about books, for example, the one I just said, I like to read books because I can go on adventures, we're like, oh my god, Rapunzel, she's just like me, for real. That's why we need some sort of personality delivered, so the audience goes, oh, that's how the sun makes me feel. That's how my cat makes me feel. That's how my garden makes me feel, right? And so we need a little bit of personal opinion and personal sincerity in order to have a character that feels real, that we can latch on to. It's really funny that we have a Goldilocks situation here because Slater's version is taking too little advantage of the animation medium. It's like he forgets that we're gonna see the butterflies that Rapunzel is singing about, right? But I feel like that Curtis's version, even though again, I love and adore this song, it may be taking too much advantage, and here's what I mean. The Rapunzel imagining herself as the blacksmith or fisherman's daughter would be beautiful as an animation sequence. Again, I already described how you could plan that out, how you have Rapunzel playing pretend around her house, and you can see that vision for the moment, but as soon as she goes to do something, it all disappears. That would be so emotionally impactful. The problem is that this doesn't tell us a lot about Rapunzel. There are 2 songs in Shrek the Musical that do this, which is funny. If I had a nickel for every time a fairy tale musical would have a song that has profession, how one feels about profession, I would have 2 nickels, but still, it's weird it happened twice, right? The structure is other princess is just like me for real. And then with Shrek, he also has something more similar to this. Instead of fairy tale princess, it is profession. I am not profession. He talks about being a poet, a Viking, and a hero. And so again, very similar to this, imagining his life as these things, but I'm not these things. And so with this one, we have profession, but I'm not profession's daughter. I'm trapped in the tower. And so that is the structure that we're working with. But the problem is, in the Shrek and Fiona example, we learn about what they value. We learn why they wish for things to change. I love the idea that she's dreaming about other people's lives, but if I was acting as a consultant on this and you asked me how I would fix it, I would say that it needs to be rewritten in a way that reveals more about Rapunzel. For example, in the song that I'm writing right now, my character does something very similar to this, where she fantasizes about being a notorious false facer, a thief that specializes in disguises, and she imagines that must be so great because pretending to be someone else would be a relief to her because she's in this strict role and responsibility as the perfect princess. And so you have the life, but then you have why that life is so important. It would be a relief to put on someone's face and be able to pretend to be someone else. And though we have mentions of the relationship with the father figure in these scenarios, I just feel like that it's too fleeting compared to, again, even though I love this language describing the sea, describing the horses and the air, I feel like that it's too fleeting and it's still not exactly the main focus. There is no one more interesting than your character. Their experiences must be centered for us to root for them. If I were rewriting this song, I would still have Rapunzel fantasize, but it would be about Flynn Rider. In every Disney song, there are elements of foreshadowing. I feel like that changing the other lives to be people Rapunzel will actually run into is a very easy way to solve all of our problems here. We can connect Rapunzel fantasizing about someone who does whatever they want, someone who always escapes without being caught, someone who goes on adventures and is always welcomed by the common folk to her situation in the tower. And we don't have to lose the idea of a family either. We could just shift it over to more of a found family. Because as far as we know, Flynn Rider seems to be the in-universe Robin Hood for the Tangled universe. Like, he's not a bad person. It seems like that he's some sort of vigilante adventure character, again, more similar to Robin Hood. So maybe what Rapunzel imagines is that first we have this other life. I would always be able to escape. I could just flee into the night and I could take on different disguises. I could be anybody if I was someone like Flynn Rider. And Then we have, and I would have my own family, my own gang of thieves, like merry men or whatever, right, that it is in Robin Hood. And so it would be like, and we'd all spend every day together going on adventures. And so you get the family thing, you get the life as a thief thing, and then you have, oh, but I'm stuck in this tower, and I can't fight, and I can't lockpick, and I can't escape. And both prototypes do suffer from this similar issue, because other Disney I Want songs, they have like a 1/3 or 1/4 doing an exposition, and then the rest of the song is about their dreams, right? But Curtis's version doesn't really have Rapunzel sing about herself until the bridge, and then Slater's version just has her singing about things that entire time. And in Curtis's version, it's really unfortunate because this is the criticism I got when I sung it at school in front of a professional panel. They basically said that the first half is missing the element that makes an I Want song compelling or interesting, and so they told me to only sing the bridge to the ending if I ever wanted to bring it to auditions. And it really stings, it really sucks to know the song that you love so much has these problems, but they were also kind of right, because when I thought about why did I pay out of my own pocket to have a custom transcription of this song? The sheet music doesn't exist. I paid somebody to make custom sheet music for me so I could go out into the world and sing this song, because this is a story I wanted to tell. But what makes me want to tell this story? It's this. It's the bridge. The bridge brings me to tears every time. I have goosebumps right now. I don't know if you guys can see, I'm covered in goosebumps on my legs just thinking about it. And this is something that I wish that Tangled had kept in the final version, because there's something so intense and so impactful about Curtis's lyrics here.
Girls who know all the stories these books and shelves have to tell. Girls who make up new endings 'cause they know the old ones too well. Girls who long to have memories of things they never have known. Pictures, places, and fantasies where they could stay just for a day before their sadness comes to take it all away.
That is the heart of this song right there. And in a world where Curtis got to keep workshopping this version, I feel like that the rest of the song should have been reworked to focus on this. This is the part that makes us fall in love with Rapunzel. It's not just the fantasies about a different life, it's that she's consumed by this sadness and using escapism in order to cope. The idea of Rapunzel painting and writing is obviously something that's present in Slater's version and in the movie, but I wish that they made it more prominent in the movie, because this idea that she's fanfic writing over the original fairy tales because she's read them so many times, this is actual Disney magic that they lost here. Slater's demo has a punchy line over here too, but it's very fleeting, which is the point, but it's kind of too bad that it's so fleeting, because Rapunzel goes back to being happy a little too quickly.
And yes, there are times when I do wish for more. Wish on the stars I'm supposed to ignore. Strange dancing stars over some far off shore. But for now I can see I've got all that I need.
I understand what they wanted to do, because Rapunzel also has, it may not be a lot, but it's enough for me, right? It sounds like she's trying to say, right? Like, it is enough for me, isn't it? But then she just goes jamming. You'll hear Alan Menken, he's just jamming on the piano, singing his little doo-doo-doos and la-la-la. Like, it's a little too chipper and a little too brief and a little too happy.
I've got so much to try. I've got a world to see. I've got all kinds of friends to keep me company. It may not be a lot, but it's enough for me. Yes, I am one lucky girl indeed. I mean, what more could I ever need? Do 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 do, la la la, ba 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 ba. What more could I ever need? Ooh.
I feel like it would have been way more impactful if it was like, that's enough for me, right? And then it's left as a hanging question. In contrast, Curtis's emotional buildup leads us to this big moment, this giant crescendo where Rapunzel's imagining if she was the princess of a kingdom, a prince would search for her. And that's excellent foreshadowing for the rest of the movie, obviously, but this gives us the character insight that I've been looking for.
Pictures, places, and fantasies where they could stay just for a day before their sadness comes to take it all away. But if I was the princess of a kingdom, then a prince would search for me, and he'd ride every mile of the Scotland Isle in his quest to set me free. But I am not the princess of a kingdom, and I'll never taste the sea. I am just a dreamer in this tower, and I wonder, are there girls in the world like me?
From my perspective as a performer, it's not about the prince rescuing her. It's that if she were a princess, someone would love her, someone would care about her, would miss her. And I feel as though, again, as the actor, right, maybe you guys are saying that I'm reading too much in between the lines, but because I need to perform it, I need to make a choice, always make a choice, right? My choice that I make about how to interpret all this is that Rapunzel feels like no one cares about her. It's been 18 years. It's been 18 years and no one's found her all this time. What if no one is looking for her because she's not important enough? She is just a dreamer in the tower. She is not a princess. She is not someone important. This tells us how Rapunzel feels about herself, that she feels unloved, that she feels unimportant, and she wonders if there are other girls in the world like her, if there are other girls struggling like she is, or if she is just uniquely unlovable. She thinks that there's something wrong with her. She thinks that she's the only girl in the world that no one cares about, and somehow it's her fault. And the ending of this song is just so impactful, even if the first half needs adjustment, and I would really love to see a song like this in a Disney movie someday. So this is another lesson for you, right? As creatives, we deal with a lot of rejection, but just because your version wasn't chosen doesn't mean that it's not worth saving. One day, there will be a girl that pays someone a lot of money to transpose your song just so she can go out there and sing it for people at auditions. When your art is authentic and heartfelt, it will resonate with people, so just keep trying. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Cal, after all the genius tips that you just mentioned, what could possibly be left? However, there is still one critical mistake, one fatal flaw that I alluded to at the beginning of the video, and before we reveal it, I just want to say thank you guys so much for getting this far, but also thank you so much to my patrons and YouTube membership members. If you want to support me directly and allow me to make videos like this more often, please consider joining our lovely patrons and YouTube membership members. All of those links are in the description. But now, let us get into the big reveal by bringing When Will My Life Begin into the mix. The major flaw of the demos is actually incredibly apparent just by the difference in title. You may think to yourself, Cal, why would that matter? Even if you change the title of the song, the rest of the song is still the same. What about everything that we talked about in terms of structure and lyrics? Are you saying that none of that matters? That the title matters more? But let me explain. I watched a lecture recently with Jason Robert Brown, and he believes that the quality of the title is inseparable from the quality of the song. When you understand what the heart of the song is, the title will come effortlessly to you. A strong title is the song's heart, the song's thesis, and with Disney songs, you can see this very apparently. What the character wants is usually the title of the song. Quasimodo wants to go out there. Ariel wants to be part of your world. Tiana will not slow down because why? She is almost there. Hercules wants to go the distance. The prototypes are suffering because the focus is misplaced. The problem with Curtis's song, in terms of us talking about how a title encapsulates the heart of a song, is that this song probably has nothing to do with what the plot of the movie would have been about, or the answer to Rapunzel's wants. For example, Snow White sings a song about wanting her true love to come by the wishing well at the beginning of the movie. Imagine if she had that song and he never showed up. My professors always said that a song should only do one thing, and the problem with this song is that there's two different thesis statements going on here. I want a family, which is what the blacksmith and the fisherman is about, but there's also, I wonder if there are any other girls out there who would understand me. But in every treatment of Tangled, there is a male suitor. I'd be delighted to be wrong if anybody knows, but in every version of the script, even going all the way back then, it is our understanding that there would have always been a version of Flynn Rider's character. Whether he was a prince or a pirate or what they ended up with at the end, it was always going to be Flynn. And in the movie, it's Rapunzel and Flynn who bond over the loneliness that they both share. Obviously, Curtis's song foreshadows the idea of Rapunzel truly being a princess and being rescued by a prince, but that's what I mean about things getting muddled in here. What is the answer to, are there girls in the world like me? Was it supposed to be that I was the girl that I thought I was dreaming about all along? And that's valid, that could be it. You may be saying, Cal, she doesn't literally want to meet a girl like her, and I understand that, but maybe she should? I feel like that if this is the type of song that you are going to write, in my mind, again, if I saw this and I was consulting on this, my first instinct as an audience member is that Rapunzel's going to be saved by a girl. That is what I would think if I listened to this song. It's like Barbie Princess and the Pauper, how you have Erica and Annalise and they both sing free. It's common sense, or at least in our storytelling instincts, right? We hear a song like I Am a Girl Like You or Free, and we see the girls singing together, and then we understand, oh, where the plot is going is that they're gonna have to live each other's lives, because they're explaining that even though their lives are different, there's still something, a similar commonality between the two of them that unites them. And like, I Am a Girl Like You makes it obvious that they're going to swap. So when I listen to this song, I'm like, oh, maybe she does find a girl like her. Maybe a girl comes to rescue her, and that's the story. Maybe it's a girl completely opposite to her, but with the same loneliness. Here's my pitch. This girl has either no parents to speak of or very flaky parents, kind of a deadbeat parent sort of situation. There's no rules at all in her life, and she pretends, this girl Flynn Rider, she pretends that she's above it all. Like, yeah, you know, my dad only really cares about how much money I bring in, but that's okay, right? Like, I like it better that way. I don't want any of that, you know, mushy, gushy father-daughter stuff. Like, that's, you know, that's silly. I'm above all that. I would write a version of the musical where people believe Flynn Rider is a man, but Flynn Rider is actually a very talented thief and a very young girl. The father is the thief instead of the twins, and the idea is that Flynn is trying to always get her father's approval. That's why she steals the crown. It was all a big test. Her father is the one that taught her that there's nothing more to life than being surrounded by piles of money, and obviously Flynn's existence would imply that she had a mother once, and so maybe it's this idea that the father thief was spurned or something, so he's like, love sucks. The only thing that you have is your money and your materialism because objects never leave you. And that's the type of character that Flynn's father is. And that way we draw a contrast between Rapunzel and Flynn's parental experiences, and then they have that shared loneliness. They have completely different lives. Rapunzel has overbearing mother, right? And then Flynn has kind of absent father, but yet they still both feel lonely. Flynn has all this freedom, Rapunzel is trapped, but the freedom isn't worth it. The freedom doesn't change anything. Flynn is still lonely anyway. So imagine that we take that and put it with the other idea I had earlier to have Rapunzel sing about how great Flynn Rider's life must be, wishing that she could be like a character like that, a character that's able to do whatever she wants. And then the actual Flynn Rider shows up, right? And it's like, oh, that life isn't all it's cracked up to be, you know? But then they find a new dream along the way together. That's how we can marry all of these ideas, because instead of I want a family and I wish there was a girl who understood me out there, and that being like, I don't know, a conflicting idea or just the song doing way too much, instead, the girl who understands you, the girl you fantasize about being, is now your found family, right? And I think that that's pretty smart, okay? But my sapphic retelling aside. So coming back to what more could I ever need, the problem with this being the title, the heart, or the nucleus is that it's too easy for the answer to be nothing, especially because of how vague the song is. I can tell they wanted to convey that Rapunzel is wishing for more, but it's not what more could I ever need, adventure in the great wide somewhere. It's what more could I ever need? I don't know, but I need to want something because this is a Disney song. Other than this little bit at the end here, Rapunzel doesn't actually articulate what she wants. And you may be thinking it's common sense that Rapunzel wants to leave the tower, but the issue is what for? Dialogue is one thing, but I was taught when it came to stuff like this, characters should not ask rhetorical or questions that are sarcastic, that they don't intend to answer. And obviously the one-off dialogue with a sarcastic character is fine, but what we were talking about was in terms of how a character feels, you have to actually make a decision. And so you should always ask, it's always more interesting to ask the question authentically. The problem is what more could I ever need does not actually ask that question. Because Rapunzel isn't genuinely asking, and it's something that she's repeating to herself to make herself feel better, it becomes a little bit inauthentic. And I know, again, what they meant to do, but that's a trouble with framing an I want song as a question. It should never be a question of what the character wants. It should be a question of how they are going to get it. And this is why the change to have Rapunzel wondering when her life will begin is the fix. You can tell that clearly, first of all, she outlines that she wants to go see the floating lights, but then by asking herself, when will my life begin, it's not rhetorical, or it's not, I guess sarcastic isn't the right word, but it's not a question that she doesn't intend to answer, because there are two choices. It's either going to begin tomorrow because my mom is going to let me go see the floating lights, or it's not. In the song we all know, Rapunzel does take us through her day, and as I alluded to, I still think it's a little lopsided in terms of that 1/3 or 1/4 exposition and the rest being about dreams rule, but I will have some forgiveness to this because in my research, what I found out was that this was going to be both an opening song and an I Want song. Apparently it was supposed to be longer, it was supposed to start probably all the way to the beginning of the movie, so I could imagine in my head reading that information and knowing what I understand about, again, scripting and staging and whatever you want to call it, right? I could imagine you have the king and queen singing. They're singing about when will their life with their daughter begin, when will they find their daughter. Then you have Flynn Rider kind of talk singing because he doesn't sing, and he's saying that my life is beginning now because I stole the crown. I'm gonna have so much money. So he has his little weird, talk singing section where he's explaining what he wants. And then we get to Rapunzel, right? And so that makes a lot of sense to me. That would have been the opening song of the movie that we understand. And so I feel like that it gets a pass. I think it would be similar to Into the Woods, where everybody is talking about their own wishes. But yeah, because of that, I don't really mind this because it's an introduction to Rapunzel's world. We have to do a certain degree of world building with her so the exposition is justified, and they deliver it in a clever way where they also get to showcase her personality, the repetition of her day, until it ends with the clear I want. And another reason why it's executed so much better here in comparison to the demos is because you don't know where Rapunzel's day is gonna go, right? When she talks about the flowers and the trees and all that other stuff that I complained about, it's like, okay, she's talking about the outside, then she's talking about the stuff she has to do. But instead of just talking about butterflies, she goes from paper mache to ballet to chess. And that's what makes the movie version so interesting and impactful. It has that surprising yet inevitable concept I mentioned earlier. Yes, she's going through her day, she's going through her daily tasks, but the way that she's doing her daily tasks, like with her hair, that's what's unique. And then also the things she's doing, how quickly she is doing them, that's all the surprising part. And then of course we cap it off with the I want, which is to go out there and see the floating lights. But when you think about it, what Rapunzel actually wants isn't just to see the floating lights. What she really wants is to be an adult. Leaving the tower is just a metaphor for the coming of age. What she really wants is to become an adult. She wants to see if her mother will let her grow up. All of these things endear us toward Rapunzel. And more importantly, it makes her decisive, which is something necessary if the audience is going to root for your character, but also for Rapunzel for the rest of the story. She had to make a choice. And that is the problem with the other demos, is that the question that they are asking does not lead to a choice. Whereas when will my life begin leads to the choice of I am going to convince my mother I am ready. My only real criticism for the song that did make it into the movie would be, as I mentioned, a lack of emphasis on Rapunzel's imagination. I just find Curtis's treatment of the song much more compelling in that regard, and it resonates with me a lot more because obviously we have characters that read a lot of books like Belle, and Rapunzel mentions her books too, but actually rewriting rewriting them for comfort and escapism, that just really does something for me. And more importantly, rewriting them to have hope that you can change the ending, that you can change your own ending. But here's one final lesson in regards to that. Both Rapunzels are compelling and authentic. Why? Because they were able to fine-tune all of the technical aspects and then give them heart. It's like if you go to Build-A-Bear, right? If you guys have ever been to Build-A-Bear, I went to Build-A-Bear for my 16th birthday because that was the kind of kid that I was. So anyway, all of my friends went to Build-A-Bear. If you don't know, you pick a bear and then you pick the heart that you want for your bear, and it's unique to you. You can pick like hearts or stars or anything. So with Rapunzel, you have the same bear, right? But two people can pick up the same bear and put a different heart into the bear, put a different wish. They call them wishes at Build-A-Bear, right? You make a wish and you put the wish into the bear. You can have two identical looking bears, but have a different core inside of that bear. And that's what I feel like is the lesson for these two, right? This Rapunzel, the one that we have in the actual canon of the final product of the movie, is cheerful and optimistic. The Rapunzel that I was yearning for and that I got attached to was, well, defined by yearning and sadness and longing. There is no right and wrong answer. There are just stronger and weaker technical choices that support your vision. And at the end of the day, it's not that Curtis's version was right and that this version was wrong and they should have gone with his instead or anything like that. It's that both versions resonate with people because they both ended up doing the work in order to be able to resonate. And if you want even more videos that go even further in depth, if you can believe it, into these technical aspects such as instrumentation, rhythm, rhyme structure, masterful lyricism, and character writing, you can check out my line-by-line breakdowns of songs that I think are perfect, like Preminger's song from Barbie Princess and the Pauper, or on the flip side, you can watch videos about songs that are so terrible, like the song from Disney's Wish, and that'll teach you exactly what not to do, and I actually go in and rewrite that one as well. So take your pick, perfection or a hot mess. It is up to you. This has been Calxiyn caring way too much, and I hope that you guys care too. This was a really fun video to do a different style compared to the line-by-line breakdowns, so let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want that Mother Gothel comparison, because there are two different versions of the Mother Gothel song as well, or anything similar to this. Let me know about your ideas. I would love to bring them to life for you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!